Hello everybody, this is the Painting Dad here, and today we are going to be trying something new for me and my channel, I guess. We are going to start a new series reviewing and I guess talking about the Thousand Sons Legion in 3rd edition Horus Heresy, or Age of Darkness. And I really wanted to make this series because this is the Legion I play. I pretty much exclusively play Thousand Sons, and I've been really enjoying it. And it's hard to find any, or I guess much info about Thousand Sons. I don't see a lot of people playing them online, or at least in like the kind of the YouTube sphere. So I wanted to spend some time and make a series just for fun to go through and just talk about what I like about the Legion, some different things. But let's go ahead and get into it with a Legion overview. So we'll just cover some of the main topics here, the basics of the Legion, and with the idea of getting into it a little more. So Legion overview time. All right, real quick though, we're going to talk about what this series is and is not about. So I have some lists, a list here, and we'll just talk real quick about what I would like to do, kind of my goals for this series as I go through it. So first of all, general Legion overview. Okay, obviously, like we're gonna talk about the rules and I guess the design of the Legion and how to play Thousand Sons and Heresy 3rd edition. I want to do some in-depth unit guides, whether that's specific Legion units or maybe how Thousand Sons use some of the generic Astartes units. So we want to get into that. Tips and tricks on how to equip units. So there is definitely war gear that synergizes a lot with Thousand Sons, and they have a lot of fun possibilities, so we want to talk about that. Army building guides and tips. That's a big point of, I think, difficulty with a lot of new people in the game, is just how to build an army. But Thousand Sons have, every Legion has unique detachments and things they can do, so I want to talk about just, some general tips on that. Psychic power breakdown's a big one. Some of the most complicated rules are the psychic powers, and Thousand Sons have a lot of extra psychic powers, so we'll be doing breakdowns of those. Tactics for getting good use out of the Legion. So just generic or general kind of tactics and strategies on like how to play on the actual board. I eventually maybe do some after action reports, kind of like battle report stuff. And just kind of talk about my games and kind of what happened and what went, well, what didn't, what I learned, those kind of things. Break down of core rules, most likely rules that are relevant to Thousand Sons, and that would be, like how to cast psychic powers, use psychic abilities, what psychic weapons are, but maybe some other general things that we need to know. Hobby updates. I paint a lot of miniatures. I currently have about 10,000 points of painted Thousand Sons miniatures for my Legion, with 5,000 points worth of Solar Auxilia and Militia allies. So I would love to eventually do some kind of hobby videos and talking about like painting the Legion itself. Know your enemy guides. So, especially as I play more games in the edition, I would like to be able to talk about my experience, what I learned, and some specific things to look out with for enemy armies or legions. Special guests, maybe I'll have people on and we can talk, we can interview, we can do some fun things like that. And any particular heresy news or announcements, maybe that's relevant to Thousand Sons, or maybe just talking about a new journal or something that comes out. So what this series is not, and this is important to me because I want to be upfront about what I'm going to be doing in this series, and this is what I'm not going to be doing. So if these are things that are not that you want to see in a series, and you're not gonna get from this one. So just so you know ahead of time, we're not doing a gripe session about the rules. All right, I have complaints about the rules. I really enjoy the rules for the most part. I'm not going to get into just complaining about rules. It's not what I'm here for. I'm not going to complain about other armies. I'm not here to complain about this is overpowered, this needs nerfed, this is, no good and worthless. Like, we're not here to complain about all the other armies. We're here to talk about Thousand Suns. This is not a win at all cost guide. So I don't play just to win every game I play. All right, I'm here for the fun of it. I like to tell fun stories and to put my cool painted minis on the table. I would like to talk about, the things that are good, the things that maybe aren't so good, synergies, all that kind of thing. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is the most powerful thing and you should take this in every game. We're not doing that. And not giving my opinions about the business practices on Games Workshop. Okay, also not what this is about. If you expect me to say great things or terrible things about the company in general, not the place for it. And we're not talking about if Magnus did something wrong or if he didn't. Not the place for this, guys. All right, this is talking about the armies, not talking about Magnus's moral decisions. All right, so today's video just gonna be a basic Legion overview. I just want to get into some of the basics and talk about some of my experience with what I've seen of the Legion for this edition, and yeah, we'll cover a lot of this stuff in more detail later. First thing to talk about is Thousand Suns Legion Tactica. Okay, this is the basic Legion rule, their right of war, or the first part of their right of war, which also includes detachments, gambits, advanced reactions, those kind of things. So the Legion Tactica, first thing to consider in the first paragraph, it excludes vehicles. All right, so vehicles do not benefit from our Legion Tactica. It's pretty easy to remember because our Legion Tactica gives all units with the special rule +1 to their willpower characteristic and the psyker trait. Vehicles don't have willpower, doesn't affect vehicles. Something to consider though, all other models get +1 willpower and the psyker trait. That includes your jet bikes, that includes all your infantry, that includes dreadnoughts and walkers, that includes even automatons. So your Castellaxakia get +1 willpower. Castellaxakia I think specifically say they don't get the Legion right. We'll look that up later. But even your rapier laser batteries or the rapier squads, they all get +1 willpower and the psyker trait. All right, so that's important. Even Magnus gets +1 willpower, all your special characters. So unless it specifically states otherwise, that unit gets +1 willpower. So I believe Magnus is actually willpower 10 when he's part of a Thousand Suns army. All right, the Prosperine Arcana. We're going to go into this. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because this is really important. All right. All units that have the Thousand Suns trait can get a Prosperine Arcana. There are 6 of them. Now there's 5 in Liber Hereticus, and there's 1 more that's coming in the Forges of Saturn journal. We have the Raptora, the Pyre, Pavoni, Corvidae, Athenian, and the Osirian. They cost 10 points each. You can only you pick 1 per squad or per unit, and that's for all of them, everything but vehicles, or if it says otherwise. I believe the Castellaxakia does say they don't pick a Arcana. Same with some other units like the Numerologist and the Prosperine Sorcerer. They'll specifically tell you if you don't choose one, but otherwise you pay 10 points for the squad and you get to choose one of these. They are essentially a psychic discipline. They each have 2 abilities, whether it's a weapon and a power, or 2 powers, or something similar like that. Some of them are reactions, some of them are blessings, but you get 2 powers in each of these, and they're less risky than normal psychic powers. So we'll talk about perils of the warp and how to use psychic powers in a later video, but know that these are less risky. They cause D3 wounds at AP2. You can still save them with invulnerable saves or with Feel No Pain if you have that. But failing these will not just wipe out a squad or half a squad like failing a normal psychic check would, or a normal psychic discipline. So, less risky. A good use for these arcanas are for extra weapons on your squads. Most of these arcanas have a weapon as one of their 2 abilities. Weapons are really easy to use, psychic weapons. You just have to have the Psyker trait. Otherwise, it's a weapon you use. There's no test to use the weapon unless you want to trigger force, but it's just a free weapon, or not free. It's a 10-point weapon, but some of the weapons are really good. There's weapons that cause panic or pinning, and you can use the rules for the Prosperine Arcana state that you can use one weapon, or one model in a unit can use a weapon per turn. So you can't have all 10 guys throwing crushing force with Raptora. It's one model per unit. So your sergeant can use, crushing force or emanations of dread. They can use those weapons while the rest of the squad's firing their bolters or what have you. But yes, it's easy extra weapons. And yeah, it is just basically 6 psychic disciplines for 1,000 Suns. You have a ton of unique psychic disciplines. They're great. I think... Okay, yeah, I know they cost 10 points per unit. I think they all have their uses. And each unit will be benefited differently by the selection. So it's really important to think about how you equip your units with these arcanas, because it really does change how that unit works in the game. And yeah, of course, this is going to be covered in detail soon. Like I want to spend a whole video just going through these arcanas, talking about each of them, and explaining the ins and outs of all these powers, because they're awesome. They're fantastic. All right, let's talk about the Prime Advantage, the 1,000 Suns unique Prime Advantage, and it is called Telekine Shift. So what it does, essentially, you give a unit this Prime Advantage. You choose to make a rush move with the unit. Now, it's only models with the 1,000 Suns trait and the Troop Battlefield role. And it's kind of difficult. I'm guessing that characters joining the unit can use this ability. It doesn't say only units with this Prime Advantage. I'm not completely sure. If you want to play on the safe side, just say it's just the squad that uses this Prime Advantage. If not, that's between you and your opponent. Talk with your opponent about it, kind of explain it ahead of time. But this is the ability. Units make a rush move. They make a willpower check, not a psychic check. Okay, you don't take it perils if you fail this. Just a willpower check. If you are successful, your unit gains the anti-grav subtype and move through cover until the end of the current movement phase. If you fail the willpower check, you can't move that turn. A little bit of risk. You're not taking damage. However, I do think it's hard to choose this over some of the other Prime Advantages, some of the generic Prime Advantages that come in the big rulebook. Something we can talk about more later is how to use Prime Advantages and some of the good ones in my experience that I've used that I feel like are worth more than some of the others. So this is actually one I haven't used because it's pretty specific. It's for a troop unit that has to be able to rush. So your troop squads are Tactical Marines, Assault Marines, Breachers, and Despoilers. This only works for, well, it works for Assault Marines. Assault Marines already have anti-grav, so it's not worth it for Assault Marines. Move through cover might be a little worth it, but it works for Tacticals and Despoilers. Breachers are not allowed to rush. And giving them anti-grav on a rush move, it's an 11-inch move, anti-grav, move through cover, it seems to have a bit more of a limited use. And it's something maybe I'll try in the next game or two, and we'll see if it really does affect anything. But it's a little more niche of a Prime Advantage. Very cool imagery though, super thematic. All right, the Gambit, Legion Gambit. is, yeah, I did play this wrong for a few games of mine. It's called Prophetic Duellist. It says that this gambit is selected then immediately after the controlling player has made their focus roll and the focus step, they may choose to replace the result of their focus roll after modifiers with the model's willpower characteristic. Okay, here's what I was messing up. I was replacing the focus roll with my willpower characteristic. And when you're in a duel, what you do, you choose your gambits, and then you both roll a dice. And in my head, that's the focus roll, that dice roll. That dice roll is only part of your focus roll. You also add in your initiative with after modifiers. So Power Fist is -3, Force Stave or something is +1, but you add in your initiative. You add in your outside support, and kind of any other things like Duelist Edge. Those rules go in there. Wounded affects that. After all of that is said and done, you choose to replace that, if you want, with your willpower characteristic. So, it's your final result that is replaced with Prophetic Duellist, with your willpower. Most likely it's going to be a number between 9 and 11, depending on the character. So Centurion might just be 9, being a Thousand Sons Centurion. Bigger characters, maybe a Praetor, or if you have a Centurion, you maybe give him some boosted stats, combat veterans or something. He'll go up a lot higher. Magnus will just straight up be 12 that he'll replace his focus roll with. So it still becomes a pretty high result, and you choose after the modifiers. So that's very important. You can basically just choose to strike first if it benefits you, but otherwise you don't get a bonus from it. So if you roll higher than that number, or your opponent just rolled higher anyway and you won't win, then it's just kind of a wasted gambit. So it can still be very useful. For wounded characters, it's very useful if you're going against a wounded character, because the modifiers on the wounds really affect that final result. So, or someone with like a Power Fist or low initiative. So it can be very beneficial, but it's something you have to figure out when you choose your gambit if you think that it's going to make a difference. So yeah, and it's a nice benefit. All right. The additional detachment. So this is a Thousand Sons unique detachment. They only have one. It's called Prosperine Convocation. It's an auxiliary detachment. That's really important. It means you can spam it. Now, I don't mean just don't take nothing but Prosperine Convocation. You really could and make a decent army out of it, but you can take multiples of these. It's not an Apex. All right, so that's a very good benefit to this auxiliary detachment. One of the things it has a great spread of battlefield rolls. It's 1 troop, 1 fast attack, 1 elite, and 1 heavy transport. The troop choice has a prime slot. That's really important. Prime slots, I feel like, are probably most important on troop choices, and mainly for the combat veterans prime slot for Thousand Sons, which adds +1 to all 4 of your leadership characteristics. And if you see where that makes sense with the willpower, but also your cool and your leadership to prevent statuses, but you can easily have tactical squads with willpower 9 as a Thousand Sons player. And that's a really big benefit when you're trying to cast important psychic powers, when we get into like the Athenian powers and Corvidae. Yeah, there's some important ones that you'll need at like clutch moments, and having, passing those on a 9 instead of an 8 is really important and can make a big difference. Another benefit to this is most of our unique Legion units are elite choices. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them, including specifically the Numerologist, which in my opinion is one of the more important ones. Numerologist is a tech marine. It's a psychic tech marine. It has the Corvidae power blessing, that's really important and really good. And sorry, it's not the Corvidae. It actually has it's a psychic ability. It's the divination power to give precision. So having a divination power, you can give precision. You can actually put that on vehicles with the numerologist. But also, numerologist is a tech marine equivalent character, and it can repair vehicles. Now, most legions, all of their tech marines are support slots. And what you'll learn, I think, after playing a couple games is, in my opinion, I think the support slot or battlefield role is probably the most crowded or the most like desirable slot. And the fact that the numerologists are not supports, they're elites, and we can take this with our Prosperine Convocation is a really big deal. It's already a good detachment, but when you can just, add in, you say you're taking 2 or 3 of these detachments, you want your Sekhmet Terminators that are elite, you want Keenatai Blades that are elite, or you want some veteran squads that are elite, but on top of that, you have an extra one, you can throw a numerologist in there, and then all of a sudden your vehicles are really good and you can repair them. So, it's a really great benefit to have the elite slot with the detachment. All right, our advanced reaction, Fortress of the Mind. This is the same as it was in 2nd edition. If you were here, it's almost exactly the same. There's a couple tweaks to put it in line with 3rd edition. So once per battle, you can only use it once per battle, reactive player can declare Fortress of the Mind during the step 4 of the shooting attack. All right, step 4 of an attack. That means the opponent has declared all of the weapons they're going to use. They've declared their target, declared the weapons they're using, and it's right before they start actually separating their dice out and rolling the dice. Your unit using the reaction can only be Thousand Suns, and they can't be vehicles. Okay, so that's important. Has to be a non-vehicle unit using the reaction. What you do, you take a willpower check. Okay, this is not a psychic check. This is a willpower check. Okay, once again, it's different. Psychic checks do perils. This can cause a perils, but it's not a psychic check. All right, so a willpower check. If you pass, you get a 3-up invulnerable save against that attack. It doesn't stick around for the phase. It's just for that one attack, but you get a 3-up invulnerable save, which is really nice. Failure causes a warp rupture, and that's a Perils of the Warp result from the big rulebook for normal psychic discipline. How a warp rupture is calculated is you take the number 13 and you subtract your willpower. For this reaction, it causes warp rupture to both your unit and the enemy unit. So that's a key thing to remember. It's both units suffer the warp rupture. Being Thousand Suns, the warp rupture won't have as much an effect on your unit. It'll still have a big effect, but being able to hit the enemy unit that's most likely lower willpower than your squad is really good, and that's just on a failure. Sometimes you're gonna use this reaction. You're gonna be just hoping for a failure. I have had one situation where I had a Mechanicum Thanatar firing at a unit. I used the reaction. I failed the check. I took 4 wounds from it, being a combat veteran tactical squad. The Thanatar ended up taking 9 wounds from this because Thanatar are willpower 4, and they're just in that category where they can suffer a warp rupture. It actually killed the Thanatar, so it was wild. But there are some uses. This might cause your opponents to feel bad when you fail these instead of pass them, more often than not. But it's great even when you fail. Failure also still gives you a 5-up invuln. It's very important. Failure gives you the 5-up invuln, so you still get a defense against the attack. And just so we know, the warp rupture happens in step 11 of the shooting phase, which is when you suffer casualties. Okay, you start pulling minis off the board. That's when you suffer the warp rupture. So important timing there. Warp rupture does not affect vehicles, which is important. If your unit's getting shot by a vehicle and you use this reaction, just know if you fail, your unit will take the warp rupture. The enemy vehicle won't. Warp rupture only causes wounds. Vehicles do not suffer wounds. All right, vehicles can suffer damage, but that's different from taking wounds. All right, and know that these are AP2, and you can take invulnerable saves against them. So that's something important to remember as well. And I do believe, I don't think you get the, let's see, you do get the 5-up invulnerable against the Warp Rupture, which is great. So you fail, you take the Warp Rupture, you get a 5-up invuln even on your tactical squad, and then the enemy takes it as well. Yeah, so you still get the 5-up invuln. Very important. It's a great reaction, still only once per battle. All right. Next thing we got to talk about. Now, this is in the Liber Hereticus for the most part, but there are small parts in the Liber Hereticus, but the Legacy PDF is going to be your friend here. The Armoury of the Thousand Suns. Achaea Force Swords are in the Liber Hereticus entry for the Thousand Suns. So we have those. There's also the Asphyx weapons, the bolters and bolt pistols, and there's the Achaean Force, or the Aether Fire force weapons, plasma weapons that are in the Legacies document. So the Asphyx weapons and the Achaea's Force Swords, I think, have specific uses. The Achaea's Force Sword is expensive. It's the price of a Power Fist, and it's not AP2. It's only 1 damage, but you are striking at initiative. You're +1 strength, AP3. It's breaching 5-up. It's a nice weapon. It is expensive for what it does. I take them a lot because a lot of my Thousand Suns minis have the Kopesh's model on them, and I think they look cool, and I like having my unique weapons. As far as use case, things like a Power Fist or a Thunderhammer, probably better for the same points, but the Force Swords are cool. The Asphyx bolt pistols and bolters are 3 points each for squads to replace those respective generic weapons with the Asphyx weapons. And what they do, they have a slightly shorter range, and they add Rending 6-up. Rending 6-up on a bolter is normally not incredible. It adds some extra damage because on a 6 to hit, you would auto wound. There are some really big synergies when it comes to combining that with weapons that breach. So normally bolters don't breach, and having Rending with the breaching weapon is really good. And Thousand Suns do this a lot. But normally a bolter wouldn't matter. Where that bolter matters the most is on units like Inductii, which just had their rules released in a PDF, so it's something to look up on the Warhammer community site. The Thousand Suns Inductii actually have a psychic ability to give themselves breaching 6-up on their shots. You combine that with the Asphyx bolters, Rending 6-up causes the breaching 6-up. You end up putting out a lot of AP2 damage with just bolters. So there are some ways to use these. They're definitely like side grades to some units, kind of pricey at 3 points per model to use the Asphyx weapons. The Achaea Force weapons are pretty expensive, but they do have uses. The Aether Fire weapons, I think, are more of an upgrade. The Aether Fire blasters are kind of like your normal plasma gun that you'd put on like your tactical support squad. They're only breaching 6-up, which is worse than normal plasma. They don't overload. They're only strength 6. They're AP 4. They are 2 damage though, so double the damage per plasma weapon. These are weapons that combine really well with the Rending special rule and the Corvidae power. So we will talk about these more in depth, and I really want to talk about like just the weapons in a video and how they synergize. I want to talk about all this stuff in individual videos, which we will get to, but know that these Aether Fire weapons are worth looking into for the possible synergies with the Arcanas and the units that use those. So very good stuff. I really like the Aether Fire weapons. I'm able to kill dreadnoughts in 1 volley with the tactical support squad, just from rolling 6s or 5s and 6s to hit. It's just an easy kill on units. You'll wipe out Terminators. The 2 damage is great on those. So, and breaching 6-up's all you need when you're Thousand Suns. So it's good stuff. But yeah, a lot to talk about with these later. And some of the stuff, there is a little FAQ that needs to happen. The Asphyx bolters at this time are considered pistols with their traits. Maybe they are. It looks like a typo or a mistake, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see if the things get updated. All right. So in conclusion, for this video, our Legion overview here, Thousand Suns are an extremely versatile Legion. You're between the 6 different arcanas that you can use to equip your units. You get all these powers, you get new weapons, you get all these things that change how your legion works. We have a lot of unique war gear for our legion, and we have bolters, plasma, and unique power weapons. We have a lot of ways to outfit units to completely change their role with just, you know, a different, like turning the page in the rulebook, and you can completely change how a unit functions. It's really great. Very versatile legion. There's a lot of depth, and there's a lot of complicated rules to digest. So if you feel intimidated reading through the, you know, 15 pages of Thousand Suns rules in the Liber Hereticus, just know you're not alone. They are probably one of the more complicated legions to play. You know, it takes a little time to learn. However, I feel like they're one of the most enjoyable, just because there's a lot of thinking, and a lot of reward in taking like risks with the psychic powers, and you really have to think ahead. There's a lot of like, if I move this here and I use this power at this time and I go here and I do, you know, there's a lot of thinking ahead. I really love planning ahead in my games. I love the strategic, like, thinking, you know, toward the end of the game. How's the end of the game going to look at the beginning of the game? That's like one of my favorite parts of playing any kind of tabletop game. But Thousand Suns are very risk reward type faction, and it's great. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate you spending the time and, you know, actually sticking around listening to this. Hopefully it's informative. If there are specific topics you want me to cover, please let me know. You know, put a comment, or come visit one of my streams. I stream weekdays on YouTube and Twitch under this channel, so I would love to have a chat and talk about Thousand Suns stuff, or just any kind of heresy thing. I talk about a lot of stuff. I paint a lot of minis, yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts, and if I got things wrong, please tell me. I'm still learning this game. I've played about a dozen games at this point. I'm still learning a lot. As far as our next episode, we're going to do a deep dive into the Prosperine Arcanas. So I'm going to go through each one. We're going to talk about some of their uses, some of their drawbacks, and how they kind of change how our units are used. And we'll be doing that. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, everybody.